Hello and welcome. My name is Jim Marshall from the New Bedford Cable Network, and I'm proud today to be joined by Bishop Edgar da Cunha from the Diocese of Fall River. And Bishop da Cunha, thank you so much for joining us today, just to sort of get an overview on the diocese and how is it going right now as you come up to your one-year anniversary, and of course the upcoming visit of the Pope Francis, to America later this month. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
You are, you've been on the job about a year now. As you said, September 24th is the anniversary of your installation.
Right.
You were named in July, I know, of last year. What's your overall impression of the diocese after being here for a year now?
Well, during these past 11 months or so that I've been here, I traveled throughout the whole diocese. I had Mass with all the students of all our schools. I have visited about 60 parishes, so I have a few more to go, but I'm on the way there. So I've been to pretty much all the areas of the diocese, from Provincetown to Martha's Vineyard to Nantucket to Attleboro and everywhere in between. And I've visited so many of the churches. I've performed 36 confirmation, I think 36 groups of confirmations, which over 1,000 kids being confirmed this year. So it has given me a chance to get to know the diocese a lot in the short time, and I have a lot more to know and to learn, discover the gifts of the diocese, the goodness of the people, the generosity and the involvement of so many people, the priests and the laity and the deacons and the religious. And I am so grateful for all those things, and the schools and the parents and the teachers and the principal, the administrators, and so many people dedicating their gifts and their talents to build up the church and to do God's work, and all the social service that we provide, and also come to know the challenges that we are facing in the financial administration, the parish administration, the parishes that are facing challenge with the dwindling participation number of people. So I'm coming to know all that and beginning to work with staff and advisors and committees that we can begin to plan and revitalize the parishes and the schools and the diocese for the future. And that's pretty much all that I've observed so far. You know.
How do you see your role for the diocese? Obviously, I know you're the bishop and you're the head of the church, but personally, how do you see your role for the members of the church here?
My first role is to preach the gospel, to bring the message of Christ to people. I often tell people the best part of my job is to go to the parishes and celebrate Mass and be with the people and preach the gospel to them and hear people say, "We are glad you are here." And I always say in response, "I'm glad to be here also." And that's my first priority and my first role. The role of the bishop is really as to teach, to govern, and to administer the diocese, to be the leader of the faith, to be the leader of prayer. Yeah, we have to do with a lot of the administration aspect of it, which is not the fun part most of the time, but it's part of the job too. And I'm trying to do what I'm here to do and what I was sent here to do.
You have probably, and we were talking about this off air, probably one of the most unique, the only word I can think of is district, but the diocese,
yes.
Just the geography of the diocese
is
so unique. Do you find that to be?
Yes, the geography and the demographic too, because we have the Portuguese, the Hispanics, the French, and a lot of different ethnic groups. And the geography, I mean, when you think of Cape Cod and the islands, and then you think of New Bedford, and you think of Fall River, and then you go into the northern suburbs, each area is very unique and very different. The Cape Cod in the summer, the population increase 500%. And then in the winter, it drops so much. So it changed by season and by areas, and we have to learn how to deal with that. And that makes more difficult to really plan for the whole diocese because of those unique characteristics.
Must make it exciting, though, too.
It does.
Because it is so diverse.
Yes, it does make it interesting. I mean, during the summer, I've been dedicating more to celebrate Mass in some of the parishes on the Cape and Island, because I know this is the time that we get more people, so they give me an opportunity to see the people and get them to see me and to meet. And so I can tell the difference from being there in the winter or early spring and being there in the summer. It's kind of a different world.
Coming from Newark, where you did before, that must have been a great experience just to transfer here now to some of the cities that you're dealing with in your diocese, in New Bedford and Fall River. I mean, you're dealing with urban issues there, and you must transfer over here, I would assume.
Yes, we have, in some way, there's a lot of similarities. Newark is more multicultural than even here, because, I mean, we had so many different ethnic groups. We had Mass in 22 different languages every Sunday in the Archdiocese of Newark. I worked with, really all my time there was working really with different people, because I was able to celebrate Mass in 4 different languages. So many times they would call me for different events and for confirmation, because they want a Mass in Portuguese, or a confirmation in Spanish, or a feast in Italian, and whatever. And that helped me learn a lot from all different ethnic groups and work on a multicultural setting. So in that sense, coming here was similar in all the different ethnic groups that we have here too, and the different cultural that we have here. And in other ways, you know, the difference too, because of the suburbs and the Cape and Island, that is very different.
Right,
so.
And economic issues too. I mean, you're dealing with, you know, poverty issues, I'm sure,
Exactly.
in urban settings.
Exactly, and we see what we're doing with our Catholic social services, how we provide shelters, and we're providing so many services to people, immigration services, food pantries and soup kitchens. It's similar to what we had in Newark as well.
What would you say is the biggest surprise that you've seen personally for your standpoint here for your first year?
People ask me that question often, and that they were, you know, probably the greatest surprise is the challenges we are facing economically, and the number of priests and the parishes that are struggling to survive. So that surprised me, because when I was in New Jersey and people were telling me, oh, you're going to southeastern Massachusetts, that include Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyards, what a beautiful area, you're so blessed. And I was saying, thank you, Lord, for sending me to this beautiful place. But when I got here, I realized that, there is all these wonderful places and people, but there is also a lot of challenges that we have to face.
I was going to ask you then, as a good segue, what do you think right now is your number one challenge that you've got to address, or that you are addressing right now?
There are really several ones that we are addressing right now. One is the finances of the diocese that we need to stabilize, and the finances of parishes that are struggling to survive, and how we can revitalize them and support them in a way that they will be able to provide the services. Schools that we have closed the schools in the past, and it's a challenge that every diocese is facing throughout the country, maintaining the Catholic education presence, and we are committed to do that. But we know that we have to do some planning and thinking and studying. So I established a task force to work and plan and make recommendation. How can we make plan for our schools to be here for the future? And so they are diligently working and studying to make recommendation for that. I have another task force that are established to do planning for the parishes. And they are also working diligently to come up with plans and recommendations and strategies so that we can evaluate all the parishes and make them vital for the future. And if necessary, some may have to merge so that we can be able to provide service for the future. So those are
never easy.
Never easy.
Never easy.
Exactly. So those are the things that we have to do, however challenging and difficult they are, but they are probably or definitely necessary so that we can be here for the future, providing the service that we are set to do.
We're talking to Bishop Edgar da Cunha here today. It's funny, I think you've read my notes here because you're rolling off things. One of the things you talked about, the Northeast part of the country has one of the lowest attendance rates for churches. I was looking at a Gallup poll, yet the highest concentration of Catholicism in the country, the Northeast.
Yeah.
How do we get people to go to church?
Well, that's the challenge we face every day. I think the coming of the Holy Father here will stir that enthusiasm for the church and renewal of the church. How to get people to come to the church? We got to keep on preaching the gospel, teaching our children, whether they are in our Catholic schools or in our religious education program. They have to have a solid faith formation and faith basis so that they will grow realizing how important God is in their lives, how important the church is for them and for their families, so that they will grow committed and involved in participating in the life of the church. We know they are influenced in so many ways by a secularized society, and we have to counteract that influence with the good message, with the real gospel message that Jesus taught us.
One of the things I thought that was interesting too, that you mentioned too, is the vocation for priests. We need to get more people to want to become priests and just join the religious services,
Yes,
if you will.
Right. Yes, since I arrived here, I already constituted a vocation board to work with the vocation director and the associate vocation directors. I added a religious sister who is also now working for the vocations office and the vocation board. And we are establishing vocation committees in each parish so that we begin to implement and to increase the awareness for the need for families, for young people to consider vocation, to pray for vocations. I think if we have the whole diocese involved, young people need to be asked and to be presented with the option of a vocation so that they consider. If nobody tells them anything about the vocation, they're not going to even think about it and consider. So that's what we need to do. And we are really beginning to implement that and advance in that direction. Hopefully, we will get some positive results. Number of vocations have increased in other dioceses recently, so I think there is a sign of young people being more open to consider a vocation to service in the church.
The papacy of Pope Francis, I think, has brought excitement to the church. I don't know if that's the right word, but is that helpful in doing your work and just doing, and for all parishes really to do their work?
Yes, it is, because we present a church with a positive light. People see the church today with a more positive light. The Pope has been a tremendous evangelizer in the sense that I know people who have told me, I am coming back to the church because of the way Pope Francis has presented the church. I've heard of people who decided to convert to Catholicism because of him and the way he's presented the church. And those things are encouraging, and I hope that he will be around for a long time, so that we can all build on this positive image, on his rapport he has with people, and the communication he has with people, and the positive image, and build that enthusiasm and that interest in our faith and our church.
He's also talked about issues that it seems weren't talked about a lot, to bring, or different groups of people, to bring them back to the church as well, which is interesting, really.
Yes, he's a very straightforward person. He's very honest, very sincere. He speaks from what really is in his heart and his mind, and he's not afraid to say the truth. He's not afraid to proclaim what he believes. But the interesting thing is that even people who may not agree with him support him in what he's saying, because they know he is honest, he is a messenger of Christ, and he wants people to believe and to accept the faith. And I can only say that I think the Holy Spirit really acted in allowing him to be the Pope for this time, a time where the church really needed a Pope like his.
Talk to a second. The school year has begun for the schools in the diocese. I know because I have a senior going to Stang right now who's not happy that school is started again before Labor Day, and I also have a sixth grader at St. James St. John, and he says it's hot in the school too right now. How does the upcoming school year look in general for the schools of the diocese? And I know you love kids, so.
Oh, well, I enjoy going to some of the schools. I enjoy celebrating Mass with all the kids. They are the hope for the church and for the future. We really need to support and nourish them in their faith, in their growing, their learning, and the values that our schools teach to them. One of the things that I've said to people is we're going to make sure that our schools will be here for the next generations. They may not be the same way that they are now, because, as we said before, changing of demographics, changing in populations, and changing in society in so many ways. But whatever the future holds, I want to make sure the schools will be there for the families who wish to send their kids to Catholic schools. I've heard from families that they are facing difficulties, but they say, there's no way I would want to put my kid in a public school right now, especially in the urban areas where they feel there's a huge difference in the environment, in the learning, and you know that yourself from your kids. So parents make a huge effort or sacrifice to make sure their kids go to our schools, and I want to make sure that the schools will be there. Right now, we have some schools that are facing challenge, but they're all able to survive and maintain their mission of teaching. We have a task force, as I said, that is actively working to evaluate and to plan the schools. So there's a lot that still need to be evaluated, to be planned, and I'm involved with a lot of people in this project. I am saying to people, and I say I'm committed to make sure that we will have schools there for the children and the families who want to attend them.
I was surprised. I know this year that there was a waiting list at St. James St. John for kids to get in certain grades.
Yes.
Which I was surprised at, which is, I guess, it's obviously a good problem to have for
That's right.
a school in particular. Anything in the school year, this coming school year, that excites you? Any new program or anything that caught your eye that you're excited about to see the kids doing?
I haven't been to any of the schools yet. I mean, they just opened.
Right,
so yeah. I'll be saying Mass for all the Catholic schools this year. They already scheduled throughout the fall and winter and spring. I will visit other schools. So right now I don't have anything that stands out.
Okay.
I'm glad to know that we're not closing any school this year. They're all reopened for the next school year.
Why is, and I guess a little plug right now, why do you think a Catholic education is important for a young child? Why should parents consider it?
Well, there are several valuable aspects that parents should consider. First of all, the quality of the education that they will get in the Catholic schools, the values that are taught to them, discipline, the value of faith and religion and community and service, so many values that will prepare them to be good Christians and good citizens in the future. And by doing all this, we are not only helping those children, we are helping our neighborhoods and our society as a whole. Because when we invest in a good education, we all benefit from it. Parents, families, communities, towns, societies as a whole, we all benefit because we will have good people, well-educated, well-formed, responsible, good Christians and good citizens who will do good for the rest of their lives. And the benefit that it brings to people, I think if people realize that more, there would be more people investing and supporting Catholic education.
The one thing that I found is that, at least in my experience at Stang, my wife's father was in the first graduating class of Stang. She and her siblings graduated at Stang. My kids have gone to Stang, obviously. In a sense, the alumni, the relationships they have with kids from their graduating class is a lot stronger than I see in other, than I see in schools. Which is interesting.
And that shows the commitment and the result of their education. So they are so grateful for what they received that they want to also give back to their community and into the next generation. So I think the value of the Catholic schools makes such an impact in the whole community. I've told people other times in different occasions that investing in Catholic education pays very high dividend because we all benefit.
Not immediately, but down the road.
Exactly, down the road,
right.
In a long-term dividend, but we all benefit from it. And that's why we all should be concerned and involved and supportive of it.
We are talking to Bishop Edgar da Cunha. I guess the last thing to talk about is something that I know that coming up here is the visit of the Pope. We've kind of touched on it a little bit. How excited are you about the visit?
Oh, I am very excited. I've talked to people about it. I've given some other interviews about the papal visit and what the impact of his visit might be. I'm looking forward to meeting him in Washington when he's going to meet with all the priests and all the bishops and celebrate Mass with him at the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington with the canonization of Junipero Serra. And I met him during the World Youth Day in Rio de Janeiro 2 years ago. And I'm looking forward to meeting him again and to hearing him and to the excitement and the enthusiasm that his presence here will bring to revitalize the church in this country.
How important is the visit to, I guess, the church, the Catholic Church in America? I mean, it's not often that a pope does come. So how important is this visit, do you think?
Well, it is very important because he is our leader, our shepherd. The Pope represents Jesus for the rest of the church. So he is an important figure for all of us. And his coming here shows our connection, our unity with him and with the universal church. It shows that he is concerned and he cares for the church in every part of the world, and he has visited many countries, and he's coming here now to bring the message of Christ, the message of the gospel, to challenge people to recognize the importance of faith in their lives, of the importance of God in their lives, and the importance of the role of the church in our society and in our world.
Anything that you'd like to see him touch upon while he's here? Any subjects, you know?
Well, I'm sure he's going to touch on many subjects. I think what I'm hoping that people will hear is how important faith is in their lives, and that people should go back to the church, and to go back to their faith and practice their faith. And if he encouraged people to do that, he affirmed people on their faith and challenged them to recognize that the importance of faith in their lives, and that people will listen. That's what I'm hoping that we make, and that many will wake up and say, yes, I can be a faithful Christian and a Catholic, and continue practicing my faith.
And this is important for you as the head of this diocese as well. I mean, if people are excited, this is going to help hopefully get people, as we touched upon earlier, to the churches. And
that's right. Yeah, we all can benefit from that enthusiasm and from that renewal that hopefully his presence and his visit will bring, and that should impact churches anywhere in the country, and that's what we hope will happen. Yeah.
So you're going to see him in Washington?
Yes, yes.
And he's speaking to...
In Washington, he's going to meet with the president.
Right.
And then he's going to meet with all the bishops, and then he's going to celebrate the Mass and the canonization of Junipero Serra, and then the next day he's going to speak at the Congress.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. I know you're a big soccer fan. I'm just wondering if in your time here you've become a Red Sox or Patriot fan, or if you've been following the Tom Brady situation.
Well, I follow the news. I haven't been to any games or watched any games yet, but I'm a sport fan, so pretty much all sports, but especially soccer. And I know next week Brazil is playing the U.S. here at Gillette Stadium.
Oh,
so that's going to be a big event next week, yeah. And
you won't be able to go, will you?
I don't know yet.
And who will you be supporting, for crying out loud?
Whoever wins.
I want to thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're very busy, and I know that, as I said, I was talking to John Kearns and trying to make this happen for a while, and it's a pleasure meeting you, and it's a pleasure doing this with you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to maybe connecting again in the future. So it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I want to thank John, and I want to thank our producer Tom Sexton for helping today, and again, thanks to Bishop da Cunha for joining us today here on the New Bedford Cable Network.